Hey, this is James, and the goal of this video is to have this form send you or anyone specified an email with its contents. So I've created a very simple form here. It's called a contact us form. I'm going to ask for the name, the email, and the message. Within the editor of the form itself, I'm going to go over to responses, and if I haven't or you haven't linked to Sheets already, you can go ahead and click here. I can create a form. You can of course change the name if you want, but I won't. It's going to generate a sheet with the timestamp, name, email, and message column. So we're going to capture all of these on each time a form is submitted. So if I go into extensions and go to app scripts, I can open up an editor and delete the empty function here. So the first function I'm going to do is called onFormSubmit. And onFormSubmit, I'm going to grab the event, and I'll just call it event here, open up my brackets, and have another function that's actually going to handle all the work, which is going to be called send email. So if I take the event, I take the range, and then I get values of it, it's going to go ahead and just send the values over to that function of mine called send email, and I'll call it values over here. So in values, since it's a 2D array that gets sent, just because we have the row and then the columns. So each row is going to be one array, and then the contents of the array is actually going to be the columns. So if I have values equals value 0, it's just going to take that first row that gets submitted. So anytime anything gets submitted, it'll just be one row. So we only need the 0 of the array, which is going to be the first array in that multi-dimensional array. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and actually create a template as well, which is going to be a lot easier for us to send emails out since it's going to be templatized. So I'm going to call it template, and I've already written the HTML here. It's going to just be a table and a table end here. You'll notice that there's this with a question mark and equal sign. It says timestamp. This is where we're going to insert our values in the script itself. We don't have to worry about that right here. We'll worry about it inside the code itself. So if I define the timestamp, I can do it at equals values equals 0. And since now we're just grabbing the values in here, I can do name, email, and the message itself. All right, so I've got those values. Let's go ahead and actually apply it to the template. So if I have something called template, I can use HTML service, which is built in by Google or AppScript itself, and I can create a template from file and just point it to template. You don't actually have to add the .html. It will understand that for you. All right, so now if we come back and look, we have timestamp, name, email, and message. So what we'll do is do template.timestamp and point it to here, the timestamp value, which we just called timestamp. Same with name, email, and message. Oops, made a mistake right there. All right, perfect. So in order to actually have this generate into the HTML body that we need to send out, I'm going to create something called body. And with the body, I'm going to use template.evaluate and get content. Which is it's going to actually apply everything here into here and then bring it into the body. Perfect. So we also need a recipient, and I'm going to go ahead and just use my email here, and then a subject. And I'm just going to call it test so you know. All right, so there's something called Gmail app that's going to be a class that you can use, and with that I can send an email. And as soon as I open up these parentheses, you can see recipient, subject, and string, or body rather, which we'll put here. Subject, oops, sorry, recipient, subject, and the body itself. But there's one more thing we're actually going to have to do. It's called the options. And within the options, you can see that there's the send email with options here under the Google Workspace developers site. There's options for attachment, blind carbon copy, etc. What we need is the HTML body. This lets us know that it's not going to be just a plain string. It's going to use all this HTML here, from here to here. All right, so if I do HTML body and then just point it to the body, it's going to know. And then I just have to add options down here. All right, now that the code is set up, we're actually going to need to test it. So what we'll do is create a trigger, and a trigger is just something that can execute each time. So if I go over to the clock here and add a trigger, there's choose which function to run. There's options. These are the two functions I have. We're going to choose onForm submit so it's easy, and then the event type, which is onForm submit, which is telling Google that every time a form is submitted, please trigger this function that we've written called onForm submit. And I'll switch to notify me immediately just so that I know if anything errors out. As soon as I hit save, since it's my first time, it's going to give me some permissions. If you're on a business account, you're not going to get this Google hasn't verified this app warning. However, since we're using a personal account, it's going to give us this warning. I'm going to hit advanced, go to untitled project, and then just allow everything. And since it's our code, you don't have to worry about anything being malicious. All right, so now it's created, I can go ahead and test. So if I go over to the contact form and I put James, go ahead and put my email, and hey, this is a message. And if I hit submit, we can go over here to executions back at the script and see if anything happened. So it failed, and we don't know why yet. It'll take a second to refresh, but it'll let us know. All right, after waiting a little bit, it looks like I did get an error, and the reference error is that timestamp is not defined. But you can see that I made a mistake in the typing here, so I can just go in and correct it. It'll be on over here into the editor, and I can just see where I messed up. And if I start looking, I'll see that there isn't an actual error in here, and it's likely in my template, which we found here. So if I correct it here, go ahead and save that, I can attempt again to submit another response, and this time it should work. That was just an example of what would happen if you needed to diagnose an error. All right, so if I try again, hit submit, I can go back to executions, and I can see that it's been completed, which is great. If I go over and check my email, hit refresh, here's a contact form, as well as you'll see that I immediately got a notification for an error from the previous time. But there's the contact us info, the timestamp, name, email, and the message. And that's essentially how you're going to automate a contact us form for mail merge simply.